All right, guys, what is going on? So we're back here on the Cocker Athlete YouTube channel. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is isometrics. And I'm going to try to talk about isometric training in regards to different populations, general populations, sport-specific population, as well as mixed modal athletes. To me, isometrics can be one of the most underutilized tools for strength, hypertrophy, and durable performance. Lots of times, some people don't think about isometrics simply as like planks and utilizing for rehab. But isometrics are a way to train force, muscle, and positions with less chaos and often less joint stress. A lot of times we've said, I want to get stronger, but my body feels cooked. For situations like this, isometrics are the cheat code. Isometrics are also the cheat code for people that just feel weak in positions, people that need to have durability through positions, people that need to train their body's ability to turn on or produce a high amount of force quickly. Isometrics are the cheat code for this. So what is isometric training? It's producing force with no visible joint movement. We have two types. You have yielding, which is you resist and don't give up a position. Think of that like a split squat hold, a bottom squat hold, a front rack hold. Or you have overcoming isometrics. You push, pull maximally into an immovable object. Think about like squatting into pins, doing a high pull into pins, an immovable bar. The key is this: isometrics are a way to train intent and tension at specific joint angles. And joint angles are real. Sport and life really actually happens. So why do they work? Well, from a strength perspective, we can create a high force output without needing a ton of reps or complex technique. For tendon and connective tissue, we can hold loads that the tissue and around the tissue to build tolerance, especially when we program them progressively. And with positional ownership, we can stop leaking force where we're weak. And there's also fatigue control. We can push intensity without a massive eccentric cost. So in other words, we can still train quote unquote hard without always training wrecked. Now let's talk about different populations and the whens, the whys, and the hows with this. The first thing we'll talk about is general pop. Because a lot of people often think, well, from a training perspective, like how and when can I implement isometric training in regards to running a class or working with people in a one-on-one setting that are like weekend warriors, people that just want to feel good, pick up their kids, move well. The number one goal for gen pop people is to feel better, look better, get stronger, don't get hurt, and don't get crushed by training. So their training can provide to their life. When they go home with their family and their kids, they're able to go on with their lives without having everything pull from them. So isometrics help because they're low skill, they're highly scalable, and often they're going to have lower joint irritation than higher volume dynamic reps and dynamic movements. They can also help build a lot of confidence quickly. So from a low skill perspective, there's less technical failure with isometric work. From a scalable perspective, we can load, we can change the angles, we can increase duration. From a lower joint irritation, we're not going to be pounding aggressive reps where the joints are going through their ranges of motion, overloaded oftentimes. And again, we can build confidence. So what are the main scenarios that I utilize isometric training with general pop people? With newer lifters learning positions, I'm gonna have them hold different angles, build squat there, and make sure technique is prime tech and they're moving well and they're having the proper structural integrity in these positions, right? From a squat, a hinge, a push, and a pull as well. I also utilize them with people who are very stressed out, people where they don't have a high reserve to give to a hard training program. They're coming in, their sleep might be terrible. They might have fighting with their spouse. Their work is in a high stress period where there's often stress from work. Nutrition is terrible. We need to create work for them without taxing and smashing them in here. So for these individuals, I might utilize isometric training with them. I use moderate intensity yielding loads, moderate duration, anywhere from 10, maybe 20, 40 seconds with lighter weight for a couple sets. And I can pair that with easy aerobic work. And also for people where their kind of joints are just cranky, but they want to progress, right? So isos let me train around irritation by choosing angles and ranges that are tolerated for them. My practical rule is this: if life stress is high, use isometrics to keep training productive without piling on and adding more recovery debt. Now, what about strength sport specific athletes? You know, we talk about people that you might work with who are basketball players, baseball players, rugby, hockey, etc. Isometrics are about angle, specific force, braking and reacceleration, stiffness and reactivity. Where does this matter? Well, sprinting and cutting, we need stiffness at the ankle, knee, hip at very specific angles. With contact sports, we need the ability to hold positions under force, such as grappling, tackles, MMA, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, etc. And with jumping, we need the ability to absorb and reapply force quickly. Something I didn't talk about here is sprinting and acceleration. We need to be able to turn on fast to explode and accelerate and get to max velocity. So best practices are competition relevant angles. So for instance, split squat hold at the deceleration angle or peak contraction angle, mid thigh pulls at peak contraction angle, upper body pulling at peak contractions, pushing at the hardest point of resistance on that eccentric and even the isometric and even the concentric portion of that. Through this, we want to think about overcoming isometrics, 3 to 6 seconds, and that can drive a high neural output, has high intent, high motor unit recruitment with minimal technical limitations. So we're not just building strength, we're building strength in position that decides the play. Isometrics can be very beneficial for these athletes to cycle in and out of or have specific training targets towards that, which we're going to talk about later. Now, what about mixed modal athletes? Can we utilize isometrics for mixed modal athletes, CrossFitters, high rocks athletes, tactical athletes? In mixed modal sports, isometrics are a performance multiplier because the sport punishes you when you can't hold specific shapes. So if your front rack collapses, your overhead position just isn't quite there and that collapses as well. Your scapular position fails throughout pull-ups or muscle-ups. Your midline goes soft. You feel like you're constantly weak in that bottom squat position or coming out of the squat position. You feel weak of a pull off the ground at different positions, etc. Isometrics can be very beneficial for gaining strength through this. You can create positional endurance, strength without smash and recovery, and transition resilience. So from a mixed modal perspective, when we're tired, we don't necessarily want to have the engine that fails first. We want our positions to last. We need to train these positions to make sure that we can continually build the athlete's resilience through the movements and through the timer task prioritization. Now, we also have some goal-specific use, right? Strength training, strength programming with isometrics. So let's talk about that. We have yielding strength holds. So yielding strength holds are 10 to 30 seconds, heaviest holds, and key positions, 3 to 5 sets. Overcoming isometrics, I like to keep these between 3 to 6 seconds at max efforts in the pins. 5 to 8 sets. You can go 3 sets if you want, have a full rest. We train like heavy singles. So this is going to build strength by producing a high action. It's going to have a high recruitment and it's going to have specificity to sticking points and joint angles. We want to use these when we're stuck at specific sticking points. We need strength but can't tolerate a ton of dynamic volume. We want to have high output with low mechanical chaos. We want to utilize this stuff to also be able to turn the body on quick. If we need to get people to be explode fast, sprint fast, jump aggressively, change direction, and then redirect that energy into that new direction, these can work really, really well. And yes, we can use isometrics for hypertrophy work as well. Because what we need to do to create hypertrophy, right, is high tension, enough time under tension, proximity to fatigue, and repeatable volume. So isometrics can deliver all of that. We can create longer holds of 30 to 60 seconds, which can create huge local fatigue and metabolic buildup. We can create isometric holds in the reps where we're going to hold and then create reps after that. So for example, be a 20-second split squat hold in 8 reps. And we do pause reps / omni contraction, 3 seconds down, 2 seconds up, creating tension everywhere where we're pausing at different spots as well. ISOs are especially useful for people that can't tolerate heavy eccentrics but still need a growth stimulus. We got to keep that in mind. There's also a stress management component to it, right? Where isometrics can almost become like a cheat code or a superpower for the coaches. Because when athletes have super high stress, their sleep is low, work-life stress is high, their life is just chaotic, we need to almost think about reducing intensity into what we're putting on them. And we can utilize isometrics to maintain a strength stimulus without crushing them and helping them to recover. We still want to train hard, but we don't want to dig a hole that the athlete can't or we can't climb out of. Now, we have different phases of doing this, right? We can create some form of like basic block system where it might do 1 week of yielding holds 30 to 40 seconds to build capacity. We might do a week of heavier holds, 15 to 25 seconds for some strength endurance, and then some overcoming holds in the pins at like 3 to 6 seconds at max and 10. So, and we can also create different joint angles for this. We can create different blocks with isometrics where where it might be staying within inside specific isometric parameters, but up just changing the joint angles as well, right? We also have triphasic training, where we're going to do 2 weeks of eccentrics, 2 weeks of isometrics, and 2 weeks of concentrics, and we can cycle through this. And we can also run omni-contraction programs, which I've had a lot of success with, which is you're taking with inside a current week, you're going to have 1 day of eccentric work, 1 day of isometric work, and then 1 day of concentric work, all inside that week to help build like general athlete preparedness. Is how I look at that. So in closing, isometrics are not just rehab, which I think we know that, right? They're strengthened angles, hypertrophy with less joint drama, their durability under fatigue, and they're a way to train hard while managing stress. So hope you guys found this super beneficial. There's so much more that we can dig into with isometric training around the whys, the hows, the whos, all that stuff. But I want to give a quick kind of breakdown of it for everyone to get some more information on it. If you have specific questions on it, let me know. We can dive into it deeper.